Okay, Hare Krishna, all the devotees. Welcome to our Bhakti Sastri Nectar of Devotion. So today, finally, is the last class for our Nectar of Devotion, Chapter 19, Pure Devotional Service. So before we continue further, we'll start our today's class with the Mangalacharan prayer. Hare Krishna. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyana Jana Salakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Shwapantikam Vande Ham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavascha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Shahaganaratam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Shavadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Dev Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Sri Vishnu. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Ste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Stuti Devi Pranama Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lokre Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Sri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Hare Krishna Nana Sastra Vicharanaika Nipuna Sadharma Samstapaka Lokanam Hitakarina Tribhuvane Madhyav Saranyakar Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nande Namatali Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyuga Sri Jiva Gopala Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyuga Sri Jiva Gopala Hare Krishna. So chapter 19, devotion, pure devotional service, nectar of devotion, chapter 19. So we'll be discussing about prema bhakti, pure devotional service. So in the previous class, we have discussed about bhava bhakti. So basically there are bhakti divided into three categories. One is sadhana bhakti, second is bhava bhakti, and the third one is that prema bhakti. So prema bhakti will be the topic of our discussion today. Hare Krishna. So chapter 19, devotional service in pure love of God. In this chapter, prema bhakti and the means of attaining it are described. The development of prema is gradual evolution beginning with Shraddha. So we have heard this many times. We learn these 9 stages from Shraddha to prema, and that again we'll discuss it today. So Prabhupada start with this statement. When one's desire to love Krishna in one's particular relationship becomes intensified, this is known as pure love of Godhead. So prema bhakti is when bhava is intensified. When bhava becomes intensified, that's pure devotional service. In the beginning, a devotee is engaged in the regulative principles of devotional service by the order of his spiritual master. When one thereby becomes completely purified of all material contamination, there develops an attachment and taste for devotional service. This taste and attachment, when gradually intensified in the course of time, becomes love. The word love can actually be applied only in relationship with the personality of Godhead. In the material world, love is not applicable at all. What goes under the name of love is the material world. Sorry, what goes on under the name of love in material world is nothing but lust. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada, he made such a clear uh, description, the difference between love and lust. So love can be applied only uh, in a spiritual platform, okay? In a spiritual platform when we connect ourselves to Krishna. So that's love, that's love. But in the material world, when we sentimentally saying that I love you, I love him, I love this, I love that, well, that actually lust. So this lust is the reflection of the real love from the spiritual world. When it comes to the material world, so that's completely upside down. Urdhva mula mada sakam aswatam prapayam chandam siyasya parnani yastam vedas avedavi. So in the 15th chapter, Krishna explained to Arjuna that this tree, the banyan tree of the material world, is actually the reflection of the real tree in the spiritual world. Just like we see the reflection of a tree on the banks of a lake or a river. So we see that the root is on the top. Urdhva moolam. Moolam. Moolam means the root. Urdhva moolam. So the root is on the top, and then adasakam, the branches, the twigs are down under. So Prabhupada also gave the analogy just like milk gets in touch with the sour tamarind, it becomes yogurt. So love, so-called love in the material world, is simply lust. It's simply lust. Ultimately, it's centered on us. It's centered on us. For example, between in the material world, between lover and beloved. So actually, the so-called lust is centered very selfishly, trying to please our own self. Actually, please our own self. When we say that we love someone, why we love someone? Because we are expecting or we are getting something from that person by which that thing can make us happy. So this is lust. Lust means actually in a simple uh, explanation, lust means when we try to gratify our senses. And then love, real love means when we try to gratify Krishna's senses. So as simple as that. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada mentioned that the word love in the material world is actually not applicable at all. Of course, we see like just like the relationship between mother and her children. So Srila Prabhupada explained that this is the best example of the biggest type of attachment. Biggest type of attachment is just like mother's attachment to their children. So that's natural for a mother to love their children, to be attached with their children. But ultimately, this is actually not real love. It is not real love. Although sometimes we see that the mother is so selfish, so selflessly serving, bringing up the children. But ultimately, it's centered on herself, on her happiness. Queen Kunti also prayed. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find the prayers by Queen Kunti. Atha Visvesa Viswatman Viswamurti Swakesvi Snehat pasam imam chindi ridam pandu subrishis. So she prayed to Krishna that please, my dear Lord, kindly cut the bondage, the attachment that I have to the Vrishnis and the Pandavas. So because lust will bind us in the material world. Why we are here in the material world? Because we are lusty. That's the idea. Because we are lusty. Lust means when we try to enjoy separately from Krishna. So that's so how to get Krishna prem? So how to derive Krishna prem? So there are two ways basically explained by Sri Rupa Goswami. So the first one is that ecstasy by bhava, by intensifying the bhava, we'll come to the platform of prema. Ecstatic love of Godhead can be potently invoked simply by following the rules and regulation of devotional service as they are prescribed in the scriptures under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master. In the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 40 of Srimad Bhagavatam, this ecstatic love, born of the execution of regular devotional service, is explained, quote, the body, in the course of executing the regulative principles of devotional service, develops his natural Krishna consciousness. And being thus softened at heart, he chants and dances like a madman while performing chanting of the holy name of the Lord. He sometimes cries, sometimes talks widely, sometimes sings, sometimes without caring for any outsider, dances like a madman. So that verse, Evam Brata Swapriya Nama Kirtya. Jata Anurago Druta Chitta Uchayi Asatyadu Roditi Rauti Gayati Unmadavan Nrityati Lokavaya. So Madhavan, he becomes like a madman. Nrityati Lokavaya. He doesn't care for outsiders, as Srila Prabhupada mentioned here. But yeah, Evam Priya Nama Kirtya. Priya Nama Kirtya. When someone is attached with a particular name of the Lord, Evam brata swa priya nama kirtya jata anurago drupta chitta uchai. So all these symptoms manifest when he chants, he sings loudly, he dances like a madman, roll on the ground, shed tears, things like this. So prema here can be achieved by even by sadhaka, even by the sadhakas, by strictly following the rules and regulation under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. So we'll discuss that in the later section, in the last part of our today's class. So yeah, the gradual process from Shraddha to Prema. So the idea is that first ecstasy. Ecstasy means when we intensify our our sadhana bhakti. So when we perform our sadhana bhakti intensely, so we will get the ecstasy. We will get the ecstasy. And when we intensify our ecstasy, then we'll achieve prema, pure love of God. And then the second way how to derive this pure love of Godhead is by the Lord's extraordinary mercy. So of course, ultimately, everything is manifested, everything is achieved by the sanction of the Lord. But sometimes we see also that someone without practicing any sadhana, sometimes when Krishna just wanted to bless that person, to give him or her pure love of Godhead. So sometimes that happens, but it is very, very rare. Yeah, it is very, very rare. For example, like when was that in the story of Ramayana? So this lady who was cursed to become a stone, something like that, if I correctly remember. And Lord Ram, when he touched the stone by his lotus feet, So immediately she regained her original form and start developing the uh, love of Godhead to Lord Sri Ram. So this is happen like that, but it is very, very rare by the Lord's mercy. Very, very rare. In the most cases, is of course Krishna ultimately is the one who sanctions everything, but we should also have great endeavor from our side. Yeah. So both things actually required our endeavor and Krishna's mercy. So without endeavor, Krishna not so easily to give his mercy. But because he's independent, he's God, he's independent, so he may do whatever he wants. Yeah. Okay. When a devotee is found to be always associated with the Lord in ecstatic love, it is to be understood that such position has been awarded by the Lord himself out of his causeless extraordinary mercy. An example of such extraordinary mercy is given in the 11th canto, 12th chapter, verse 7 of Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein Lord Krishna tells Uddhava, the gopis in Vrindavan did not study the Vedas to achieve me, nor had they ever been to holy places of pilgrimage, nor did they devoutly execute any regular principles, nor did they undergo any kind of austerity. It is simply by my association that they have attained the highest perfection of devotional service. See, the residents of Vrindavan, naturally, they are actually chosen souls, being the eternal companion, constant companion of the Lord. So it is also mentioned here that the gopis, they never went to the places of pilgrimage. Well, Vrindavan itself is a place of pilgrimage, but uh, these gopas in Vrindavan, they consider that this Vrindavan is just like their home. They don't really feel that this place is a holy place. Yeah, they don't really feel that this place is a holy place because for us, for outsiders, so Vrindavan is a very holy place, pilgrimage, place of pilgrimage. But for the gopis, for the residents of Vrindavan, Vrindavan is just like their own village. That's it. If they want to go to a place for pilgrimage, they may go outside, like Kurukshetra, for example, Haridwar, somewhere. But it is mentioned here that they never went for pilgrimage to visit holy places, pilgrimage, simply by getting Krishna's association. They are blessed. So they are blessed, naturally they are blessed. Well, of course, we understand also that this is very rare. Okay. If we see like Vrindavan is just a small spot in this material world. And that means we understand that it is very rare. Out of millions and trillions of souls, the residents of Vrindavan are most fortunate. And because they are getting the direct mercy of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Yeah. So naturally, they are pure devotee. Well, of course, from another point of view, we can understand that they may have performed severe austerities from their previous life, just like all these gopis. We see in the previous classes that some of them are sages in the uh, Ramayana in the previous yuga. Actually lost my respect to it. So actually, they were the sages in the Dandakaranya forest. So when they saw Lord Ram, so they want to embrace Lord Ram, but embrace in the mood of a lover, wanted to embrace his or her beloved. So that desire fulfilled in their next lives, and they appear as a gopis. And also, like the gopas, also when who is that? Subal, or yeah, it was Subal, was very intimately just putting his hand on Lord Krishna's shoulder. So the gopis become uh, jealous spiritually, transcendently envious, that alas, they are thinking that what this boy have done in his previous life, so things like this. So yeah, that's the way how we understand. But of course, to take birth in Vrindavan itself is a very special case, very rare case. It is very rare. So this is the second way, Krishna's extraordinary mercy. First one is intensify our ecstasy by following the sadhana very strictly. We'll get the ecstasy, and when we intensify that ecstasy, we will come to the platform of pure love of God, prema, Krishna prema. Then second one is that the Lord's mercy. Spontaneous attraction to Krishna, which is said to be due to the extraordinary mercy of the Lord, can be placed under two headings. One is profound veneration for the greatness of the Lord, and the other is one's being automatically attracted to Krishna without any external consideration. So here we are talking about the Mahatma Ganapram and Kevala Prem. So Mahatma Ganapram is when a devotee is aware of Lord Krishna's vibhuti, opulence, greatness, just like the residents of Vaikuntha, for example. Residents of Vaikuntha understand that Krishna is great. He's the supreme substance of Godhead. He's the creator. He's the original of all entities. So all his vibhuti, all his opulence, one is aware, and then one tend to think that to serve Krishna in the awe and reverence, with awe and reverence. So one is thinking that he's completely depending on Krishna. He's completely depending on Krishna. So the body will think that I'm yours, Krishna, I'm yours, which is actually very, very good, very high level of devotion. Such a devotion is very elevated. But even higher to that is Kevala Prema. So there is Mahatma Jnana Prema, when one understand, when one have the knowledge of Krishna's greatness, Mahatma Jnana Prema. And then second one is Kevala Prema. That means that pure love without any boundaries. That's how, just put in a simple term, without any boundaries, without any consideration of rules and regulation, just like the residents of Vrindavan. And this type of Kevala Bhakti generally only found in Vrindavan, in Braj, where the devotees is very freely associating themselves with Krishna, chastising Krishna, and then thinking that Krishna is very much depending on us. Without us, Krishna may not survive. So they pray to Lord Narayan to protect Krishna. For example, when Krishna was, attacked by Putana, of course, although Krishna killed Putana, he did kill Putana, but Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yasoda, they were full of anxieties. They prayed to Lord Narayan, they bathed Krishna with Panchagavya, blessed Krishna to protect his life. So this is called that love is actually very, very intense, that the devotees forget that Krishna is God. Not only forget, but the devotees actually don't know that Krishna is God, yet his love for Krishna is very, very intense. So this is the difference when the jiva is completely under the influence of yoga maya. Mahatmanas tumam partha daivim prakriti ashucha. So daivi prakriti ashucha. So if you're devotee like the residents of Vrindavan, they're completely under Krishna's daivi prakriti, the yoga maya potency. Eternally, they are in the under the influence of Yogamaya potency. Therefore, they constantly remember Krishna, yet they forget that Krishna is God. So they constantly remember Krishna. They want to do everything for Krishna, but they forget that Krishna is God. They just know that Krishna is our child, Krishna is our friend, Krishna is our beloved, like this. And then the difference between the devotees who is always under the divine energy of the Lord, then those who are being influenced by the external energy of the Lord, Mahamaya, and then later on becomes the devotee, become a devotee, and that means he's under the protection of Yogamaya, potency of the Lord. So when he is under the influence of Mahamaya, he doesn't know that Krishna is God. He forgets his relationship with Krishna. But then when he becomes devotee, then the devotee will remember that, oh yeah, our relationship with Krishna is this, I'm his servant. So the devotee is aware of Krishna's greatness. So first he forget his relationship with Krishna. Now he remember Krishna, and he remember that Krishna is God. He remembers God, and he remember his opulence, that Krishna is God. And another type of jivas, they are completely under the Mahamaya potency of the Lord, under Maya, external energy of the Lord. They forget Krishna, and they don't know that Krishna is God. They don't know Krishna is God, they completely forget Krishna. So there are three categories of jivas if we see from this perspective. One is who's always forget about his relationship with God and doesn't know who's God, that Krishna is God. Second is that when one first influenced by Maya and then later transformed into devotee, so he remember Krishna and he aware that Krishna is God. Another one, the highest one, is that the jivas who's always under the influence of the internal potency of God. He always remember Krishna, but he forget that Krishna is God. Sometimes when Krishna manifests his potency, his opulence in Vrindavan, sometimes in a slight moment, the Brajavasis, they sometimes aware of Krishna's greatness, but after a few seconds, they immediately forget about it. For example, when Krishna shows the Vishwarup, the universal form to Mother Yasoda within his mouth. So at that time, Mother Yasoda, she aware of Krishna's opulence. But then, just a few seconds after that, Krishna makes her forget. Then she just thought that, oh, maybe I'm just under some kind of spell, magic spell, like this. So that's two ways how to derive this pure love of Godhead, Krishna. One is by ecstasy, by following rules and regulations strictly, one, and the another one is that by Krishna's mercy. And in this category, there are two types of pure Krishna prema, pure devotional service. One is that Mahatma Ganapram, and another is Kevala prema, Kevala bhakti. And our next discussion about association with pure devotees. So here we'll be discussing about the 9 stages from Shraddha to Prema. Although many different processes for developing love of Godhead have been explained so far, Srila Rupa Goswami now gives us a general description of how one can best achieve such a high position. The beginning of ecstatic love of Godhead is basically faith. Just like in the beginning of our discussion of Nectar of Devotion, what is the qualification to engage in Krishna service is just by having slight faith. Faith, first of all, faith. Because without faith, we'll not come closer to Krishna. At least slight faith. There are many societies and associations of pure devotees. And if someone with just little faith begins to associate with such societies, his advancement to pure devotional service is rapid. In the next stage, under the guidance of the spiritual master, the devotee executes regulative devotional service. So Sraddha, faith, and then Sadhu Sangha, associating with the devotees. And in the association of the devotees, one will be convinced to get shelter of a bona fide spiritual master and engage in devotional service. This is called bhajana kriya. And then where is that? The devotee executes regulative devotional service. So that's bhajana kriya. And as a result of such activities, he becomes free from all unwanted occupations. So this is the anartha nivriti. Then when he is free from unwanted occupations, his faith becomes steadily fixed. And then nistha, fixed. And he develops a transcendental taste for devotional service. Ruchi develops. After being fixed, then one will develop ruchi. So without being fixed in our service, we cannot develop taste. For example, like if we chant our rounds not fixed, that's why it is a good practice for a beginner in Krishna consciousness, or when we are in a position of preacher. So it's always good to preach to the newcomer that better you chant, for example, like start with 1 round, but that should be regular, and then increase 2 rounds. And you should not fail to chant 2 rounds every day. Then 4 rounds maybe, and then 8 rounds, things like this. So when we fix with our rounds or any particular service, then only we will get the taste, ruchi. Otherwise, when we just sometimes we fluctuated in the sense of today I chant like 4 rounds, and then tomorrow 2 rounds, and then day after tomorrow, okay, maybe 5 rounds, and then calm down again. So in this way, actually, we cannot get the taste. We cannot get the taste. Same thing like reading scripture, also studying or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, for example. If today we hear Bhagavatam, and then tomorrow we skip, and then day after tomorrow we hear, and then skip again, like this. So we cannot get the taste because we are not fixed in our service. But if we hear on a regular basis, so we'll get the taste. We'll get the taste. For sure, we'll get the taste. Shat Krishna Nama Charita Disita Pravidya Do Patapta Rashana Shanarochikan. So on a regular basis. Kintwa Darad Anudinam. So Anudinam means every day. Every day means on a regular basis. Kintwa Darad Anudinam Kalusaiva Justam Swadi Ramad Bhavat Tadgada. So our disease, our material jaundice will be cured by regularly hearing, regularly chanting, and perform some services. For example, if we take commitment of some services, for example, like cleaning the temple, for example, cleaning the temple. We take this commitment to clean the temple every day. In the beginning, we may feel like, okay, why I have to clean this? Why I have to do this? But as we are doing, actually, we'll get the taste, and that becomes natural for us. So after Nistha, Ruchi will come. Same thing like chanting of the holy names. We get the taste because that's why we have our standard 16 rounds minimum, and we should not fail actually. We should not fail. When we fail to chant 16 rounds, and then sometimes the mind will tell us that, okay, 4 rounds left, for example, 4 rounds left. And we think that the mind will tell us, okay, today you are very tired. please take rest. Tomorrow you can chant 20 rounds. Sometimes that happens in our lives, right? But as much as possible, at least 16 rounds. 16 rounds should not be neglected. Shouldn't fail to chant our 16 rounds attentively. Then when we fix in these 16 rounds minimum, naturally we will increase our taste to chant holy name. Once um, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj mentioned in the lecture to the public, he said that if you chant 16 rounds of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day, and if you don't develop taste to chant this holy name, if you don't feel the change within your heart, within 1 year, after chanting this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, 16 rounds every day, every single day without fail, if you don't develop taste to chant this holy name, if you don't feel the change within your heart, within 1 year, I will give you $10,000. So Maharaj mentioned like in the class, because he guaranteed, because he already experienced. He experienced. That's why he has the confidence to say that to the public, that 16 rounds without fail, every single day, 16 rounds, intense, intense chanting, attentive chanting, 16 rounds, good rounds. Then 1 year, we'll develop taste for the holy. So that's after Nista, and then Ruchi comes, taste, and then attachment, asakti. We will become attached. We will become attached. If we don't chant Hare Krishna, we will feel so bad. We will feel so bad. Something is missing. Something is missing. Then ecstasy is bhava. And then in the last stage, there is pure love of God, prema. These are the different stages of development of pure love. So these are all very well known by all of you who assembled here. Sraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Ananta Nivritti, Nista, Ruchi, Asakti, Bhava, Prema. So as in the previous class, we have discussed that Bhava cannot be obtained unless we are on the level of, after we surpass the level of Anartha Nivritti, or the purificatory process. Our heart should be cleansed, first of all. Then ecstasy will take place. Otherwise, it's just simply pretending. It's just simply pretending when we trying to be, in ecstasy, but within our mind, we still, have a lot of material desire. So, yeah, that's not genuine. But real bhava will manifest at least after we surpass the anartha nivritti. Our hearts should be cleansed, first of all. All right. And yeah, this is the last. Only the most fortunate persons can achieve such success in life. Those who are simply academic students of the Vedic scriptures cannot appreciate how such a development takes place. So there are so many scholars, those who are studying the scriptures, unless they have devotion to Krishna, they will not understand that this subject matter very clearly. They may philosophically know it, but they will not realize. They will fail to realize. Just like before the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip. Navadvip is known as the center of education. So people all over India used to come here to Navadvip to study Sanskrit grammar, philosophy, debate, So things like this. But people studying the Vedas just for the sake of to show that who's having greater knowledge. So they just study the scriptures just to have a debate, just to have a debate. Like Keshav Kasmi, for example, is known as the Digvijay Pandit. Digvijay means unconquerable. Digvijay, he already conquered. Vijay means victorious. He conquered everybody. So whenever people saw him, actually they're afraid. They used to hide or run away somewhere because they are afraid of him. He's so knowledgeable in Shastra and debate, in arguments. So everybody is afraid to put argument to him because it is described that Mother Saraswati is actually residing in his tongue. But Nimai Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was 11 years old at that time. 11 years. It's described. Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was 11 years old. So, and he just a grammar student. So grammar Sanskrit student. Grammar is in Sanskrit. When someone studies Sanskrit, when we just learn the grammar, that's considered to be very basic things that we study in Sanskrit. But this Nimai Pandit, he conquered the Divijay, the case of Kashmir. Yeah. So he asked, he asked Keshav Kashmir to compose some verses to glorify Mother Ganga. So the debate took place on the banks of Ganga. So Keshav Kashmir composed 100 verses glorifying Mother Ganga. And Lord Chaitanya picked one verse and mentioned the defect of that verse. And Keshav Kashmir was astonished. He just recited once, and Nimai Pandit could memorize the slokas. And Lord Chaitanya said that not only in this verse, but in many other verses also there are some defects. But I will not mention that. And he's just pointing out one defect. And he explained. And Keshav Kashmir, he felt ashamed and went home. And then he cried, he prayed to Mother Saraswati. How this has happened? Why you let me to be embarrassed in the front of these kids? So Mother Saraswati appeared in his dream, and she said that it is not possible for me to show myself greater in the front of my master. So yeah. Anyway, the purpose of studying the Vedas is not only for arguments, or sometimes we need this knowledge to argue with the non-devotees to defeat their philosophy, Mayavadi philosophy. We need that. But the primary purpose of studying the Vedas is just to develop our love for Krishna. And in fact, everything that we do is just to develop our love for Krishna. Krishna. Somehow or other, that's our goal. By studying the Vedas, Etavan Sankhya Yoga Vyam, by studying the Sankhya philosophy, or by performing some types of yoga, Etavan Sankhya Yoga Vyam Swadharma Parinishaya, or by following our Swadharma within the realm of Varnashram, Swadharma Parinishaya, Janma Labha Parapumsa Ante Narayana. Somehow or other, the perfection of life, especially when we get human form of life, is to remember Lord Krishna at the time of death. And remembrance of Lord Krishna, constant remembrance of Lord Krishna, is a symptom of those who are already elevated to the pure love of God. Because unless we have pure love of Krishna, it is not possible to always remember Krishna. So, yeah, just to conclude, so that's the end of this 19th chapter. Just to conclude from the beginning of our discussion, the nectar of devotion. So actually, if you see in your student handbook, you can study that part, page number 60 something, 69, 70. Not remember exactly the page number, but you can go through on that. That actually an act of devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it has four division, just like ocean. So there's north, south, west, and east. So this first 19th chapter is actually the eastern part of the ocean of the nectar of devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita, the eastern part. And then in this eastern part, it is divided into four waves. Divided into four waves. The first chapter is describing just the introduction about pure devotional service. So the characteristic of pure devotional service mentioned there, Vesakti Subhada Moksa, Aditaki Sudurlabha Sandrananda, Visesatma, Sri Krishna Pasimchasa. So what is pure devotional service? Anu Ulyena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttama. So that is the introduction, the first chapter. And then from chapter 2 to 16, describing about sadhana bhakti. Therefore, the 64 items of bhakti mentioned there, and then the evidences from different scriptures, why we have to do this, why we have to do that. So that's about sadhana, our practice. And then there are two types of sadhana, Vaidhi sadhana and Pragadha. So we discussed that. And then chapter 17 and 18 describe about bhava, what is bhava, how to obtain bhava, and then what are the characteristic symptoms of a person who's in bhava. So there are 9 characteristics of those who are in bhava. So, and then the last wave, the fourth wave is prema, devotional service and pure love of God. So prema. So when bhava is intensified, we will attain prema. And when someone is on the level of prema, there is no question of falling down. There's no question of falling down. Of course, I have read once that when someone is already obtained the level of bhava, there's no chance for him to fall down. But we see also the evidence, the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bharat Maharaj is already in the level of bhava, it's described there. He's already on the level of bhava. Yet, due to a slight deviation in his practice, so he becomes attached to this baby deer, and finally he falls down. Falls down means that you check your bhakti. That's the meaning, of course. Bhakti is eternal, and the credit that we get is also eternal, eternally invested in our spiritual bank account. Neha Bikramana Susti Pratyavayo na Vidyate Swapam Apyasha Dharma. So Swapam Apyasha Dharma. Slight advancement in this process, Krishna consciousness. Neha Bikramana Susti Pratyavayo na Vidyate. There is no loss, there is no division. Japtya Swadharmam Charanam Bhujam Hare Bhajana Pakvo Tapate To Yadi Jatra Kovadam Abutta Pushakin Kovata Apto Bhajatam Swadharmam. Even in the immature stage of devotion, sometimes the body seemingly falls down, but actually there is no loss. So falling down in the devotional service means we simply check the progression of our advancement, yes, but there is no loss. We will not start from zero, but we start from the place where we left. That's it. So unless we obtain prema, then there is always possibility of falling down. Padam padam yad padam. There is dangers in every step. So thank you very much. I'll stop here. I'll stop here. Whether any questions, comments, or whatever points need to be discussed. Hare Krishna. Okay, if there is no questions or comments, we'll stop here. So get ready for the exam. Yeah, because there's not so many questions in this unit. So I'm hoping that the exam will take place in next week, next Thursday. Hare Krishna. And I will send in the WhatsApp group about which essay that you have to write, that you have to submit. And would like to remind everybody again that for those who have not submitted their essays, kindly please do it. We are almost completing the course. Yeah, I mean for the first batch. Yeah, I'm not speaking to the second batch of this group, but for those who are in the first batch. So please, those who have pending their essays, kindly submit. This is unit 4. I'm planning to round up the course for the first batch within 2 months. There are 2 books left for those who are from the first batch, Sri Upanishad and Nectar of Instruction. Because we are planning to have this course for a year. Yeah, but I think it's almost a year now. Yeah, almost 1 year now. So please cooperate together and submit your slokas. Very few devotees submitted their slokas, and for those who have not submitted even one, please kindly contact me personally. I'll be ready to give my time to assist you. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Vancha kalpatarubhyacha kripa sindhubhya pacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo. Hare Krishna.